everybody. So we're obviously not on the couch today. We're in the woods. Nate is cameraman for the moment, and then we're gonna switch places. But everyone was really kind of interested in our brew kit that we talked about a couple of videos ago. So we thought we'd take a little walk in the woods today, try to like recreate the wild camping vibe, and do a little demo of the stoves. So before we actually light anything on fire, I'm just gonna talk about the kit a little bit. So if you want to come closer, let's look at what we have here. The first thing we have are our stoves. These are the Primus stoves that we talked about last time. We have two of them. They're identical. And when I open their lids, you can see one has had a little bit more use than the other. So this is Nate's stove that's been around for a million years. And this is my stove that I only bought maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So you can see the soot difference there. But they're the same stove. The other stove that we have is this guy, which is the stove that Nate found this piece on the side of the road in a skip, I believe. And this just sits on the gas can and lights. So we'll take a look at, we'll light them up, and you can see the difference in how they light, how quick it is, how easy it is, why we tend to take this one now, but doesn't have as much character for our little stoves. Along with our Primus stoves, I can give you a little tour of them. So the stove lives in its little house here, and this is the actual stove itself. So it can come out of its little case. Now, the stove itself has a couple of different features. This is where you put the petrol or the gas in. So this is actually a reservoir that holds the fuel. And you don't want to fill this up all the way. This is some of the like little quirky things about this stove. You don't actually want to fill it up all the way, but it needs to have some petrol in there to actually work. This little piece here, and you can see what happens when you handle these stoves. This little guy here is like the on-off nozzle. So that's how you actually get the petrol to come up through and light the fire, which is going to come off the top bit. And then another important kind of top piece, which is really hard for you to see, I don't know if we're going to be able to get an angle, is that inside there is the jet, which is where the actual fire will come out of. And the jet itself is a persnickety little bastard and gets really clogged. So along with the stove, we always carry this pouch, which has a bunch of our stuff in it. The first thing it has, we obviously have tea bags and coffee, just instant coffee that we take with us. We have fruit shoot or Ribena bottles. These have all seen better days, but these actually carry petrol in them, and this is like a sugary drink. For those of you guys who don't know, this is like a kid's sugary drink, what originally came in here. And these are some of the only petrol proof bottles that we found. So if you put petrol in like just a normal water bottle, it will dissolve it and it won't actually be able to hold the petrol. So we've had to use these type of bottles. That's why it's so bashed up and it's been around for a million years, because it's one of the few bottles that you can find. And nowadays the fruit shoot bottles don't work. I think we tried to get some recent fruit shoot and it doesn't work. So this is a really, really old bottle. And then the last thing that we have in here are our two little tool cases that hold all of the tools for the Primus stoves that we're going to be showing you. So this is my case, which obviously has some lighters in it and some tools, which I'm going to go over in just a second. And then we'll just use Nate's case for now, which has the same stuff in it. So we obviously have lighters. These are wicks. And then this little tool here, which I'll show you behind my hand so that you can kind of see it. This is a little pokey tool for that jet that I was talking about. So the jet inside here often gets covered in soot. So what you need to do is you kind of poke the little pokey tool through there, and it's really difficult to do, but you kind of insert it into the jet and wiggle it around to try to loosen some of this soot that gets clogged in there. So if your stove isn't working right, you need one of these to help you unclog the jet. And then the last thing, oh, I don't see your key. Nate's key isn't in here, so we'll have to use, oh, Nate's key lives in his stove. Nate's key lives in his stove. My key lives in my little packet, but Nate's key lives in his stove. So this is the little key, or I call it a key, that you actually put onto the opener to open and close the stove. So that's how you turn it on, you turn it off, higher flame, lower flame. This whole thing, as you're gonna see in a minute, basically will get caught on fire and be very, very hot. So you wouldn't be able to turn the stove on or off without this key, which then comes off. So there's also a way that you can lift the stove so that you don't have to handle it at all. So that's kind of the tour of the stove stuff. We have our kettle with us, we have some water with us, so I think now Nate is going to take a turn and light these bad boys up for you so you can see how they work.
Right, so it's over to me, I guess, and I've got to try and light this thing. Now I know this has been sat in the cupboard since the beginning of forever, and the petrol and it's kind of old and nasty, so I don't know if it's going to light or not. I don't actually know. No, there's not a lot in it either. So because I haven't used this in ever, the first thing I'm going to do is clean the jet out. So to get to the jet, this whole top piece unscrews. I think that's called a diffuser, but I'm not sure. I think the aim of this is to spread the flame around. So you can see the little jet here. You've got a tiny little pinhole in the top. Then you've got this thing. Now, depending what region you're from, you'll have a different name for this. And where I'm from, this is called a progger. So we're going to give the jet a bit of a progging. Yeah, you see that's quite tough to push in because of all the soot and crap that's in there. Give that a bit of a go. Now that should let some fuel out. Next thing we're going to do is screw the diffuser back on. Now this is where it gets a bit mad. Oh, one difference I should point out is this stove has this thing. So this is the filler cap, but as you can see, it looks slightly unusual, and that's because the center of this is a pressure release valve, which is properly old school. So what happens is, in a minute we're going to heat up this fuel chamber. It's going to increase the pressure inside it, and we're going to let it out through the valve, push the petrol out and light it up. And if we don't do that, or the pressure builds up in here, maybe this is clogged and the pressure builds up and up, it will release the pressure and the fuel vapor through this lid, which is great. But when these malfunction, they can do it when this thing is on fire, and basically you'll have this raging away on fire, and then this will distribute a nice mixture of fuel right onto the flame, and you'll end up with a huge fireball. And we know a certain person whose stove was really dodgy, and he basically started lighting it, and he had a full beard, and by the end of lighting it he was pretty much clean shaven. So yeah, which we all found absolutely fucking hilarious. And it may or may not have happened to me once or twice. So hopefully this is still all right. And yeah, so I'm going to fill it up from the ancient fruit shoot bottle, if I can even get it open. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to fill this up, but I'm going to leave an air gap. Not going to fill it right to the top. I want a bit of an air gap in there, just so that it builds up a good amount of pressure. How are we doing? Yeah, we're not far off. Right, so that's the petrol in, up to a decent level. The fuck did the cap go? Oh, it fell in here. The fuck? There's a reason why a lot of these things have chains on them on other people's stoves. Alright, next thing I'm going to make sure that the key still works the valve. So these valves can get a bit touchy over time. They have a little piece of string wrapped around the inside that forms a seal, and sometimes that gets a bit old and nasty. Right, now this is the bit that I really like because it's so old school. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to need to build up some pressure in there, and we do this by heating it. So we're going to slop some petrol into the top here, a little reservoir thing, and then I'm going to lift it into here. I hope this works. This petrol is really old and nasty, and now we're going to light it up. All right, there we go. So we've just got to wait now. We've got to wait for that to build up some temperature. It's pretty damn cold today, which this is going to like. It's going to build up pressure better because it's cold. It's a cold day, whereas when you do this in the summer and it's a baking hot day, sometimes you don't get a lot of pressure coming out of them. But we'll give this a second and see how it goes. The other thing I should mention is that we're in the middle of a forest right now, and a lot of people, if you live in a dry country where forest fires are a thing, then you're probably thinking, oh my god, they're lighting a stove in a forest. Forest fires in England, not a thing. It is the middle of winter. Everything here is piss wet. It really is soaking. I wouldn't recommend lighting fires in a dry area, but it is so wet here. Good luck getting anything to burn. So we're going to carry on giving this a couple of seconds more. And this is interesting. You get a feel for this. I've never timed this, but usually I'm a bit out of practice right now, but normally I can time it in my head as to when we should start to open the valve. So I'm going to give it a go and see if I can hear the fuel coming out. Yep, there we go. Oh, and that's actually ignited itself. Right, so the flames died down a bit and it's only coming out of one side. So I'm going to see if I can clean the valve on the fly while it's still got some pressure in. But that's not looking very healthy. It should be hissing and it should be like roaring sound, and this is barely lit. So it's old, it's sooty, the petrol's really nasty and old, but cleaning the valve might help. Right, we'll try that, see if that improved anything. No, so we probably won't be able to use this today. It really needs some fresh petrol that's not 5 years old. Yeah, that's not healthy. How's this one gonna do? Probably no better.
And when I always light on the stoves, I wait until that petrol pool in the middle starts to bubble. So I know that it's hot. But everyone's got their own.
That's the beauty of these. You've got to get to know them.
Their own, yeah, you can start, well, not quite, so I would say not quite, but that little puddle in there will start to just bubble ever so slightly, like it's almost boiling. But everybody's got their own way of knowing if it's time to go or not. There she go.
Oh, that's way better.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see how that's, well, trying.
Here's the blue.
Ah, now you can hear it. Yeah, so this is the other one with the much cleaner jet. Probably a bit newer fuel as well. That's really loud for you. Ah, so let's get the cap on. The other problem with these is they're prone to tipping over. So that's that one there, and while we're waiting for that one, well, you've seen what a lighting procedure it is with that. It's kind of fun, and you've got to wait around now because it's not the hottest thing in the world. And I've been using that for probably the last 12 years, and then a couple of years ago I was driving along and I just saw the top half of this out on a scrap pile. I don't know the name of this. This is Epi Gas, don't know the model number or anything like that. Somebody had thrown it out because the rubber O-ring in the bottom here was missing, so I stuck another rubber O-ring in, bought a can of gas for it, and away we went. And this works really, really well. From pure function, this works awesomely well. And all you do to light this one, turn the valve on, and spark it up, and that's it. You can't really see the flame on this one quite so clearly, but that's it. Don't really often have to put a windshield around it or anything, just throw the thing on, and this will boil a kettle in a couple of minutes. Well, what, about a minute or two? This is super fast. And we've just ended up using this all the time. Let me turn that off, because we're not actually going to boil the kettle on that. But yeah, the thing with this is it's absolutely soulless. And if you've ever been around new and old machinery, you may be able to relate to this. Old stuff like the petrol stove down here, it has all these quirks, and you've got to learn how to do it just right, how much to open the valve, how long to leave the petrol on, what it's going to be like in different weather and everything else. This just works. And for some reason that takes the soul out of it, it takes the character out of it, and it takes the sooty hands out of it, and it's all part of it. And I find that the same with a lot of modern motorcycles. We ride old bikes that you have to start just right, and they've got their own quirks and things, and the way they corner is very peculiar to that bike. And I've also ridden brand new bikes that just do absolutely everything really, really well. And give me an old bike. Give me an old bike that I'm the only person that knows how to start the bastard thing. And I will take that all day long, because that feels to me like soul. Whether it is or not, I don't know, but you feel like it's got some sort of character. Which these new things, we're using this because it's quick and it's easy, but totally soulless. So the stove's been going a little while now. It's been about 5 minutes or so, and you can see the steam just starting to come out of the kettle. Now if I touch this, just gently, I can feel the vibrations of it starting to boil. And when it feels like it's vibrating a lot, we know it's ready to go. Yeah, so we're pretty much there. Just like that. Right on cue as well, that was pretty cool. Alright, so I'm going to turn this off. Now we get on to the good stuff. Now I know from experience and third-degree burns that hot handle is fecking hot right now. So I'm going to do the old sleeve trick. Dishes up a brew each. Now for some reason, tea made on this stove in this environment tastes different. Don't you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
The bag went in the...
You didn't wrap it round the handle.
Americans, we suck at making tea.
Slacking.
And this is also pretty clutch that you never fill up the cup all the way to the top. It's turning into a tea making video, but that water's ridiculously hot, and if you want to drink your tea anytime soon, don't fill it all the way up. Just add a little bit of cold water from your water bottle to the top of the tea so you can drink it.
Yep, absolutely. Especially if on the road you want to have a quick cup of tea and then get back in the saddle as soon as you can. So a bit of cold water in the top. You're going to get the old dirty fingers in there, give it a bit of extra flavour.
Yeah, there we go.
Give it a bit of a stir.
Yeah, freak everybody out.
Yeah. They're gonna be looking at our tea bag going, what the fuck tea is that?
In a
tea
dirty
with
cup as
croutons.
well. Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah, we got a brew each. This is going to taste pretty much like we're on tour right now. I'm probably going to suck because we're not on tour right now. Is that bad? Is that great but bad?
I mean, it's so good. But it's so sad that this is just in a forest near our house, not actually on the bikes.
With the clanks of the kettle and the noise of that stove and everything else, it's a total killer.
That sputter, that like...
Yeah,
when it's really like cruising.
Happy and purring stove.
Because my job is always making coffee or tea first thing in the morning when we wake up. Nate's usually groggy and still kind of getting up. And you, how many times have you woken up to that noise?
Oh yeah.
That noise is the noise that wakes him up. I can bash the kettle all I want, I can stomp around, nothing. But as soon as that little like
that is the best sound. You know when you wake up in a tent on the road somewhere, you're woken up by the sun and the sound of that coming through the side of the tent. It's like, this is where we're supposed to be.
It's the soul. It's the soul. That stove is like our buddy, and you need to do it the right way and know how it goes. And it's always a little dangerous. Remember the one time I almost lit the whole campfire? On fire?
It's not always gonna come according to
But
plan.
it's so good. It's so good. There's our little stove for you.
Yeah, and it's I mean, that stove means a lot to me because I've been on tour and we've been freezing cold and wet
Hungry.
and lost, and it's dark, and you've just really had enough. You've had a couple of hard days in terrible weather, and you stop and you fire the stove up, and the stove, that noise is like, yeah, it's not so bad, you know. It's gonna be all right. We'll
It's like
get through
another
this.
person.
Yeah,
It's like
it
another
totally
companion
is.
on tour. You
Moral
know?
support.
Yeah, it's like your little
provides the moral
cheerleader
support.
buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely awesome. So yeah, we're going to drink these and get back to the house, and well, we'll be back to the usual format next week, I think. But we got so many messages about this stove that we just had to do a video. So we hope you enjoyed it. Bye bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Bye.